Okay, welcome to the human body, an introduction to the human body. We're just going to be covering the basics in this unit. So take notes, and this is your first set of notes. Anatomy is the study of the structure of the body parts and their relationship to one another. So we're talking about at the gross macroscopic level, so these are your organs, things that you can just see with your own eye. Or we're going to be talking about the microscopic level, things that you have to look at under a microscope that aren't visible to the naked eye. And we also talk about the development, how our anatomy develops from the point of initial conception and how a fetus develops all the way through old age. We also talk about physiology in this class, and it's the study of the function of the body's structural machinery. Now, given this topic can get extremely complex, so we won't go into a great deal of the physiology in this class, but we will touch on it just a little bit. So gross anatomy consists of the regional structures, so a part of the body like your abdomen or your leg or your arm. It also can refer to an entire system, so your digestive system or your reproductive system. And they can also refer to the surface, study of the internal structures as they relate to the overlying skin. Cytology is the study of cells, and histology is the study of tissues. And we will be studying in this class primarily the tissues, so we're going to have more focus on the histology. So I mentioned developmental anatomy. So this is how the fetus develops. So you can see these are varying different types of animals. We have a lizard, you have a tortoise, a pig, and the very last one you have a human. So you can see at this level there's not a whole lot of structural differences between them. But as they move through their development, here and here, you really start to see the major differences. So this study of the developmental anatomy is called embryology. So it's the study of the developmental changes of the body before birth. There are specialized branches of anatomy, one of which is pathological anatomy. This is the study of the structural changes caused by disease. This is what tends to interest most people. In this picture, you are seeing a normal liver, the first one, right here. That is a normal liver, even though it looks kind of disgusting. You can see in this one how it has a strange color. This is a very fatty liver, somebody who's had a very poor diet. Whereas this gargantuan, black, disgusting blob is a liver that has cirrhosis. So this is caused by a number of diseases. So the liver at that point is not very functional. But pathological anatomy is studying how these diseases changes the structures of the organs or systems. We use radiographic anatomy, which is the study of internal structures visualized by specialized scanning procedures such as an X-ray, an MRI, or a CT scan. Most of you have come in contact with this at some point or know somebody who has, but these are things that we use in order to take a better look at what's going on inside somebody's anatomy without having to cut them open. Molecular biology is the study of the anatomical structures at a subcellular level. This picture is particularly a piece of DNA, which is most commonly studied, but it also encompasses lots of other molecules and chemical reactions and things that are going on inside your body and in your cells. One thing to consider is that when you're talking about the physiology is the operation of the specific organ systems. So, how is your renal glands working, which is how is your kidney function working? Neurophysiology is how is the nervous system working? Cardiovascular, how is the heart and blood vessels working? So it focuses on the functions of the body, often at the cellular or molecular level, because in order to determine a problem with these areas, you're going to have to look at the microscopic level or below. Understanding physiology also requires a knowledge of physics, because there's a lot to do with electrical currents, blood pressure, and the way muscles use bone for movement. The principle of complementarity talks about how the function always reflects the structure, and what a structure can do depends on its specific form. So we're not going to do the thing that is below, but think about what a partner, or think about what a human arm versus a bird's wing, how they both have very different jobs and they have very different structures. And so there are constraints placed on these limbs because of their forms. A human arm cannot allow us to fly. So our levels of structural organization begin at the chemical level, at the atoms forming molecules, which compose to make up cells. Cells come together to make tissues. Tissues come together to make up an organ. An organ system consists of different organs that work closely together. And an organism is made up of the organ systems. The integumentary system is the skin. It forms the external covering of the body. And also includes sweat glands and oil glands, hair, and nails. And it functions to help protect our tissues and help synthesize vitamin D. Our skeletal system is our bones and our ligaments and cartilage, and they help support our body, protect our organs, and provide something for the framework for the muscles to hook onto in order for us to move. It is also where blood cells are formed and minerals are stored. The muscular system is composed of muscles and tendons, and it obviously allows us to move. It allows us to talk, our faces to move. It helps us maintain our posture and produces heat. Our nervous system is composed of brain, spinal column, and nerves. It's extremely fast-acting and helps us to respond to stimuli. It will activate the muscles or whatever glands needed to help us do that. The cardiovascular system is composed of the heart and blood vessels. The heart will pump blood and to the blood vessels, which will supply the body and the tissues with blood and also transport waste and other substances. The lymphatic system is composed of red bone marrow, the thymus, the spleen, the lymph nodes, and other lymphatic vessels. It picks up fluid leaked from blood vessels and returns it to the blood, and also disposes of any debris. And it also is important in the immune system. The respiratory system is composed of the nasal cavity, pharynx, trachea, bronchi, and lungs, and helps supply our blood with oxygen, and we also get rid of CO2 that way. The digestive system is composed of the oral cavity, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine, the rectum, the anus, and the liver. It helps break down food into absorbable units so they can be absorbed into the blood, and then it also helps us eliminate anything that's undigestible, including waste. The urinary system is composed of the kidneys, ureter, urinary bladder, and urethra. It helps eliminate nitrogenous waste from the body, and it's also important in regulating the water balance in the body, which also helps regulate blood pressure, and electrolyte and pH balance of the blood. We also have both the male and female reproductive system. The male reproductive system composes of the prostate gland, penis, testes, scrotum, and the ductus deferens, and obviously functions in production of offspring. The male glands produce sperm and the sex hormones, and then the ducts help deliver them to the female reproductive tract. The female reproductive system includes the mammary glands, ovary, uterine tubes, uterus, and vagina, and also helps function in producing offspring. This is where ovaries are produced as well as sex hormones, and where obviously the baby will develop later. One of the most important things in understanding anatomy is understanding how organ systems are related to each other. no organ system can exist without the other systems, and they all rely on each other to work properly. For example, we can see here the how a lot of the different ones are connected to each other. You have the tegumentary system, which is the skin again, and then how we have the food that's ingested by the digestive system, absorbs nutrients into the circulatory system. The waste is excreted into the excretory system, which helps get rid of it. You have the respiratory system delivering oxygen to all the tissues in all the organ systems. So they're all interrelated with each other. Okay, so this is where you can end taking notes for the first day. You can continue if you would like to go ahead and keep listening. If not, but this is all you're responsible for the first day. So you can stop here if you choose, and then come back and take the rest of the notes another time. Okay, so these are our day 2 notes. So these are notes that you'll be responsible for on Friday. So continuing talking about our organ systems, our necessary life function in order for our body to do what it does and just to be able to survive, there are certain things that has to happen. One of them is maintaining boundaries. Obviously, you want to keep what is outside the body outside and what's inside inside. If your blood and gut start spilling to the outside or bacteria and things start coming inside, you're probably going to have a problem. Okay, you also have to be able to move. We are not plants, and so we have to be able to move to get our food, but we also have to be able to get that food to move around our body. We also have to be able to respond to any stimuli, so respond to stresses. We have to digest our food, metabolize that food so that our cells can actually use them, and then get rid of any waste. If any of these things breaks down to a significant amount, you're going to become extremely sick. Reproduction doesn't necessarily mean always having a baby. Obviously, people can survive their entire lives without reproducing, but your cells themselves have to be able to reproduce. You create new cells as the old ones die, and so that is a necessary life function. And then you also have to be able to grow from when you are in utero throughout your life, growing and replacing old tissue, old cells to keep your body healthy and to be able to live as long as most people can now. Okay, our survival needs. This is things like nutrients, oxygen, water, maintain your normal body temperature, and maintain atmospheric pressure. That seems counterintuitive to most people, but that's necessary in order for the air to be able to come into your lungs and the carbon dioxide to escape. You have to be able to maintain that atmospheric pressure. For example, if you were to get shot in the chest, and if somebody gets shot in the chest, it usually causes their lungs to collapse, and they can't breathe, and they often die of respiratory failure long before their heart stops. It is important for our body to maintain homeostasis. So this is the ability to maintain a stable environment despite what's going on in the outside world. And this it's a very general term, and there's lots of things that happen in your body in order to allow this to happen. So how's homeostatic control mechanisms? So any variable that produces a change in the body is going to you're going to have these 3 things responding to it. You have the receptor, and this monitors the environment. So this is your nervous system or any other sensations. Glands can even be a receptors picking up on stimuli. Then you have the control center that determines that set point. So your body is healthiest at 98.6 degrees. Well, there's a control center in your brain that has set that, and then if it starts to deviate too low or too high, you either start shivering or you start sweating in order to get back to that set point. Okay, and then you have an effector, which is the means to respond to the stimuli. So, for example, you go out in the cold weather, your nervous system is the receptor and picks up that it's cold. If your body drops low enough that the control center picks up that you have deviated below the set point and you're starting to get cold, it needs to warm you up. So it's going to signal your muscles, which are the effectors, to start to shake and shiver in order to get you to warm up. Okay, so we have both a negative and a positive feedback system. In a negative feedback system in your body, the output shuts off the original stimulus. So you think about this, how a thermostat works in regulating your room temperature, and it can also, the same thing, regulating your body temperature. Now think about for a second, does the word negative mean that there is a destruction? Well, in this case, no, but think about what that means. So it's not, both negative and positive feedback systems are extremely important in your life, in your homeostasis happening inside your body. Okay, so here you see, and I know that this is, the words are slightly off point, but you kind of see here what we mean by a negative feedback system, and we'll go through this bit by bit so that you can kind of understand how it's exactly this is talking about. So just bear with me. Okay, so we have a balance here. So this is, when it's straight, this is normal. If it's deviating too high or too low, you're deviating from that set point. Okay, so here our stimulus is you have a rising room temperature. Same thing could happen if you have the room temperature is dropping too low. Either way, you're deviating from the norm. So you have a set point. You set your thermostat at something. So that thermostat is your receptor. It's monitoring the temperature of the room. So here's your thermostat. This is where you have set the control center. So this is where you set what temperature it is, and this thermometer here is monitoring that, okay? Should the, so you have a signal here, signaling to the heater to turn off. So in this case, in this direction, here was normal, and the temperature in the house was getting too hot. The heater was on, it was heating your house up. It started getting a little bit too hot, past the point of what you had it set at. So the thermostat signals for the heater to turn off so that we can start lowering the temperature back down, so it hopefully goes back to normal. Okay, so hopefully in this, the response is that your temperature drops and it returns back to normal. Okay. The same thing could be said if the stimulus is the room temperature is getting too cold. The receptor is set. The thermostat is indicating that your house is getting too cold. Again, your thermostat is picking up on this. This is where you have set it. So it's the control center. So think about this as like your brain. Okay, now it's getting too cold, so it's going to turn the heater on, and hopefully the room temperature rises. Okay? So a positive feedback system is that the output enhances or exaggerates the original stimulus. Okay, so regulation of blood clotting. Okay, so let's say that you have a tear in a blood vessel wall. So your body's going to start initiating the clotting response. So you cut yourself, you're starting to bleed. A feedback signal is initiated. So clotting starts to occur as the little platelets are signaled to start heading towards that cut. And they release chemicals. All these little orange lines right here, those are chemicals being released by the platelets. Those chemicals in turn attract more platelets. So it's exaggerating that effect. It's platelets attract more platelets, and eventually the clot starts to seal off the cut, and the feedback signal ends after the clot is fully healed. Of course, we can always have disturbances in these systems. So if you can think about if you had, think about it in terms of your body. If you had either one of your negative or positive feedback systems go haywire, and think about the clotting, for example, if you had a destructive positive feedback, what if that clotting mechanism never stopped and you just kept clotting and you're eventually, what do you think would happen if certain things like this became imbalanced, maybe due to disease or toxins or a whole range of other things? So think about that before class tomorrow. So this ends our next set of notes.